You know what I forgot to ask you? So are you able to put, once we get the motions in the chat? Is that, are you able to do that?
Yeah, no, I'd plan to do it for you. Yeah. And I noticed somebody's already in chambers, so I just sent them a quick direct message and said this is 100% virtual, which it did say in your email, but Sean just not have realized and just gone in quickly. Yeah, I don't know if they do or don't, but they're there anyways, so better safe than sorry. Right? He'll be fine. He's got thick skin. Okay, see you soon. Bye.
Tamara, was that you that just changed my name?
Yes, it was. Is that okay?
It's just in the middle of doing it. Every time I log on with my personal computer, it says my daughter's name. So thanks.
You're welcome.
What time is it? 1 minute, guys. Mr. Scoble, do we have a agenda?
I'm not sure if Ledge has one prepared or not. I guess we can.
Yeah, I mean, it should be simple, but it'd be nice to be able to put it on screen or something so we can actually have a vote to approve it.
My apologies, Mayor, it's Cheryl. I'll get you guys, I'll email out to you right away. We'll get it sent to you.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So we'll wait till we get that agenda before we start. Okay, guys? So a couple more minutes.
I just sent it to everybody.
Okay, I'll go look for it.
Mayor Herron, Dave LaFleur here.
Hey.
Just before you call the meeting to order, just as a procedural matter, I just want to confirm that following your call of the special council meeting, which of course was with less than 24 hours notice, I did get confirmation from yourself, obviously, the person who called the meeting, but I got confirmation from the minimum required number of other councilors. So we have 5 council members agreeing that the waiving of the normal notice provisions to the public and to each other is okay. The only one I didn't hear from is Councillor Watkins. Of those who are in attendance today, I don't see Councillor Hughes in attendance. Maybe she is and I'm missing it, but Councillor Watkins, if you would like to, you can still now confirm that you are okay with holding this meeting, waiving the normal notice provisions.
Sorry, in a while I had to find the unmute. Yes, I am in acceptance of holding this special council meeting.
Okay, very, very good. So all set to proceed.
All right, and David, if I need to sign anything, or if you need signatures, just let me know.
Okay, no, in the circumstances, I mean, there's obviously no way we can all get together. So I did have emails from everyone, so that's fine.
Okay, all right, then I will call the meeting to order for a special council meeting Thursday, September 16th, 2021. In attendance, did you say Councillor Hughes is not here?
I didn't see her. I don't know if she is.
I don't see her either.
Madam Mayor, I received a text about 5 minutes ago saying she's attempting to get here, but she's got some scheduling conflicts she's trying to adjust, so she may join us in a moment.
Okay, so in attendance, we have Councillor Broadhead, Councillor Jolly, Councillor Hanson, Councillor Mackay, Councillor Watkins, and Mayor Herron. All right, so did you guys all get the agenda that it was emailed? Councillor Mackay,
Yeah, no, I'll
you
move
like-
that. Yeah, sure. I'll move, unless Councillor Watkins wants to do it as a final, he's all right. He's probably still,
Bye.
yeah, all right. That the special council meeting of Thursday, September 16th, agenda be adopted as presented.
all right. And for those that are at home and don't have a copy of the agenda, it's short. Agenda item number 1 is attendance. Agenda item number 2 is the adoption of the agenda. Agenda item 3 is business items, 3A is COVID-19 matters, and then adjournment. So with that, I will call for the vote. Just raise your hands, all those in favor. So I've got unanimous. Thank you for that. Okay, so Mr. Scoble, obviously we're calling this meeting because of the provincial announcement last night, and a decision needs to be made by council if we will follow the restrictions on capacity, et cetera, and or implement the restriction exemption program in our facility. So I'll pass it over to you and probably Percy to fill us in.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so, in response to your comments there, yes, in light of the announcement at 6 o'clock last night, administration has done an initial review and summary, and Percy will present that shortly here. Of course, there's many details to sort out and many unknowns. The orders were not posted at our last check here and of course the orders contain the specifics and the details, so to speak. So once we've posted those, or once those have been posted, even if they've been posted while we're speaking here, we have not done a fulsome review of them yet. However, to respond to the orders, council direction is required to undertake the restrictions exemption program or not. Additionally, there is an incremental funding request. Again, the financial impact is unknown of implementing whatever council direction is this morning. It's unknown, and so this is meant to be a bridge to implement council direction through the period leading up to the election and the establishment of the new council. So at this point, some or all of this money that we have are asking for this morning may not be needed. We just simply don't know at this point, but at the same time, we are looking for continuity to continue to implement council direction through the next 6 weeks or so. So with that, I will turn it over to Percy. He's got a PowerPoint prepared here to kind of give a summary of status and a summary of the information that we know so far.
So I'll try and screen share here and get this up for you. Just let me know when you can see it on your end there. Okay, perfect. Really, good morning, Mayor Herron and councillors. Administration is really here today to provide you a current situational update and information on the current provincial measures that have come into effect. We'll provide an overview of the COVID situation, provincial restrictions, the provincial exemption program, with options for discussion. There we go. Alberta is currently at 18,481 active cases, or at 43.5% of all active cases in Canada. Alberta's total is 143 active cases, behind the next 3 highest provincial values for Ontario, BC, and Quebec, all added together. The province of Alberta has once again declared a state of public health emergency. Dr. Hinshaw has identified that the healthcare system is in crisis due to rising hospitalization. Yesterday, Premier Kenney identified the need to do 3 things urgently. First, maximize our healthcare capacity. Second, reduce transmission of the virus by reducing interactions with other people. And 3, get as many people as possible vaccinated. Premier Kennedy also stated that we need to prioritize vaccinations because this is a crisis of the unvaccinated. 90% of those in ICU are unvaccinated. And between ages of 20 and 50, you're 50 to 60 times more likely to be hospitalized with COVID than if you are vaccinated. Active cases, as we talked about before, are 18,421 in the province. And you can see that in the graph there showing this wave. Hospitalizations due to COVID are at 877. And there are 218 ICU patients directly related to COVID. Health modeling has projections of over 300 patients in ICUs by the end of the month without additional measures in place. Active cases in the region have continued to see increases over the last while. Obviously, the information we have here shows that the active cases are up. In the region as well as in St. Albert, our vaccination rates in St. Albert continue to lead the province, or one of the provincial leaders in the top 3 of overall numbers for the province. What we'll do over the next while is provide a little bit of information on what we know, but we provide a caveat with that information, as Kevin has indicated, because a provincial order has not been placed yet. So we're working on details based on the press conference and also on the provincial website. In that, there are 3 targets that were identified and 3 target dates. So that's September 16th, today, there are some restrictions. September 20th, also the restrictions, and October 25th is related to the restriction exemption program, which comes into effect September 20th, and we'll get into a little more detail with those pieces in a bit. Effective today, there's implemented our social gatherings for indoor and outdoor. Indoor social gatherings, the vaccinated individuals can have a private indoor social gathering limited to a single household plus 1 other household to a maximum of 10 vaccine eligible vaccinated people, and no restrictions for children under 12. For unvaccinated, indoor social gatherings are not permitted for vaccine eligible people who are unvaccinated. Outdoor social gatherings, private outdoor social gatherings are limited to a maximum of 200 people with 2-meter physical distancing. Places of worship have some restrictions in place with masks and capacity limited to 1/3 fire code capacity and physical distancing between households. Sports and fitness and recreation and performance activities for youth under 18 come into effect. Those are indoor group classes, training, competitions permitted, but participants are required to screen for symptoms, maintain 2-meter distancing, except while the youth are engaged in physical activity. They have to wear a mask, except while engaged in physical activity. Spectator attendance for those activities is restricted to 1/3 fire code capacity. Attendees are limited to single household or 2 close contacts and must be masked and maintain that 2-meter physical distancing. Outdoor activities can continue with no restrictions. Also, day camps and overnight camps are required to maintain physical distancing between individuals. There's also masking and physical distancing requirements, many of which were already in effect. Schools have additional measures in place, and that includes mandatory masking for students in grade 4 and up. Working from home measures are also in effect. Mandatory work from home measures are in place unless the employer has determined the physical presence is required for operational effectiveness. And if working on location, they must mask in all indoor places except when alone in workstations. So effective September 20th, the previous restrictions remain in place, and then they add what's on this list here. So weddings and funerals have, kind of those restrictions of permitted up to 50%, 50 people or 50% of the fire code occupancy, whichever is less. Indoor wedding and funeral receptions are prohibited unless the hosting facility implements a restriction exemption program. Outdoor ceremonies and services and receptions are permitted up to 200 people and must follow the liquor sale and consumption restrictions. For sports, fitness, and recreation and performance activities, adult sport over 18 years of age starts this day. The following restrictions apply. Indoor group classes and activities are not permitted. Indoor competitions are paused except where vaccine exemptions have been granted. Indoor one-on-one training and solo activities are allowed with 3-meter physical distance. Outdoor activities can continue with no restrictions. For restaurants, cafes, bars, pubs, nightclubs, the following restrictions apply. Indoor dining is not permitted. Outdoor dining only with a maximum of 6 per table, 1 household or 2 close contacts for those living alone. And the liquor sales and consumption restrictions apply. And those are for businesses, once again, that don't implement the restriction exemption. Indoor retail and entertainment and recreation facilities like our Service Place, Fountain Park, and the Arden Theater would have restriction capacities restricted to 1/3 fire code occupancy. Attendees must be household members only, with the masking and physical distancing requirement or around all those others. Now, the restriction exemption program starts on September 20th, where discretionary events and businesses must follow one of the 2 options that are posted on the screen there. So implementing the restriction exemption program requiring proof of vaccination or a negative rapid test to continue operating as usual, or following capacity and operating on the restrictions we talked about previously. So businesses that implement the restriction, businesses that implement the restriction exemption program can operate as usual if they only serve to people less than 12 and over who have proof of vaccination, and that's single dose between September 20th and October 25th. After October 25th, double doses of vaccine are required, documented of a medical exemption, or proof of a privately paid PCR or rapid test within 72 hours of service. Businesses do not need to apply for the program. Audits and enforcement will occur by the province to ensure rules are followed. The restriction exemption programs do not apply to businesses or entities that need to be accessed for daily living, employees of the businesses participating in the program, and children under 12. As previously mentioned, that October 25th is significance relates to the proof of vaccination under the restriction exemption program. As we talked about there, September 20th to October 25th, proof of a single dose is considered acceptable as long as that was given 2 weeks prior to the time of service. After October 25th, proof of that double vaccination will be required. So we've got a couple slides here about the options for discussion. And really what we're asking for a discussion to determine whether to implement the restriction exemption program requiring proof of vaccination or a negative rapid test to continue operating as usual, or follow the provincially mandated capacity and operating restrictions at our facilities. There are implications. If we implement these restrictions, these will affect our facilities, and specifically our recreational facilities. First of all, if implementing, it allows programs for adults, remove space restrictions, and has significant effects on items such as minor hockey and junior hockey within our civic facilities. If not implementing, we'd have to follow those provincially mandated items, social gatherings, sports, fitness, recreation activities for youth and adults, outdoor events and facilities items, the restrictions that we saw in there, for restaurants, bars, cafes, and nightclubs, which would be some of our internal stakeholders affecting them, and the internal indoor retail, entertainment, and recreation facilities restrictions, including those the occupancy loads. There's obviously differing financial implications to both choices. Implementing will likely have staffing or revenue implications either way. But with the implementation, there will likely be more staffing to control points with proof of vaccination. And if programs aren't run, staff will be affected from those programs. And there's, with both options, there's differing levels of validation and enforcement. Either way, it affects the public. There's effects on our leaseholders and our sports partners. Either way, with shutting down, in some certain circumstances, possibly. For this next point on the federal election, I'm going to pass this just immediately over to Kevin just to introduce this as well.
Thanks, Percy. So there may be a bit of latitude required on the 20th of September, depending on which direction council goes. In that service is also a federal polling station for the federal election on Monday. So we are unsure at this point whether if council implemented the restriction exemption program, if we could operate that in parallel with the federal election, because we can't restrict anyone's right to vote. So we're not sure if we can operate that in parallel, or the restrictions exemption program may become effective September 21st, one day later. That's still details that we need to sort out, but that is a bit of a conflict point on Monday here, depending on which direction council goes. Turn it back to Percy now.
And with that, we'd be happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Percy. Can I start off with a quick one about masks? So if the city was to do the restriction exemption program, there's still, would you need to wear a mask still at service place, at least when you're walking to and from your sporting event, et cetera? Because I feel like if you do the exemption program, all restrictions are gone, and I would prefer to at least keep the masks in place. So are we waiting for the orders to really figure that one out?
That one's truly a wait until we see the orders, because it's that proof is in the pudding sort of item.
Okay.
Yes, I would comment. Sorry, Mayor, I may defer to Mr. LaFleur here, but my understanding is these are minimum requirements from the province. A municipality could choose do more, and perhaps I'll let David expand on that.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if we need to have the masking bylaw, at least for city-owned facilities, in front of us again. So, Mr. LaFleur?
Okay, I to some extent, I do want to wait and see the new order. However, it's important to bear in mind that the order everybody saw last week, what we call the masking order, that had some other things in it as well. It was amended without any fanfare, without any announcement, the day before yesterday, right? The day before the big announcement yesterday evening. It was quietly amended to say that any municipality can put in any additional requirements it wants without being in conflict. So yes, Mayor, the city could require masking to still be in place the way you put it, as people are walking through Service Place to get to whatever activity they're going to do. We could do that. The amended order, to use the number order 40, allows us to do that. So very interesting timing, but yes, we can now do that.
And obviously, I don't think we have that in front of us today.
We
So,
do not.
yeah.
This is all coming so fast. We don't have it yet today.
Okay, thanks. All right, I'm going to go to Councillor Jolly and then Councillor Broadhead.
My first question is just around context. Mr. Jenke, on slide 4, you kind of had the graphs of kind of how severe this wave is. Can you just, I believe this is true, but with previous waves, we were doing asymptomatic close contact testing, and this wave we're not. So are we kind of assuming that the graphs are not kind of reflective of the current situation compared to the other two?
Well, that's actually a very good question, Councillor Jolly. Health has talked about this, and in the meetings that we've had with them, and actually they've indicated that they figure they are only getting a limited portion of what the actual case count is, just simply because they aren't doing that detailed contact tracing, and they're not doing the asymptomatic testing.
Okay, thank you. My next question is about the PCR tests. Is there any opportunity, like for the vaccine passport or exemption program, is there any way that we could kind of have those, like, be selling them basically for, or partner with a pharmacy to kind of have private tests available at Service Place, kind of as part of the service?
Some of those tests are available at the current time. Places like Dynalife also does that. We know that Shoppers Drug Mart does those as well. Having it on site we have not investigated that at this point. It's so rapid, and the changes here are so rapid that we're just adapting on the fly here right now.
Okay, fair enough. And so again, for the passport program, for places like Service and Fountain. So say I have my information is all in our computer systems. Is there a way for me to provide my proof of vaccination and have that indicated in my account, the same way that they've verified my residency for early registration for swimming lessons? Is that something that we've looked at?
That is something actually we're looking at this morning. We'll be working with our FOIP people as well to understand what we're able to do on that piece as well.
Okay, so I would assume then kind of we're still looking on how we can even verify. Like, I have my little card that has my lot number and whatnot, and so we don't even understand what proof of vaccination looks like. Is that kind of where we're at right now?
Well, the province hasn't issued their final what their final product looks like at this point in time. They've indicated to utilize the the proof of vaccination, your paper copy you received either at your pharmacy or at the AHS sites that are there for the kind of the interim period here, and the vaccination card that will be available is being talked about as being available on Monday.
Okay, thank you. My next question is about employee vaccination. So I understand that the province is not mandating that employees who are kind of in our facilities in person require vaccines. Is that going to create problems in terms of attracting business? Like, are we having groups say, we want your staff to be vaccinated, or we're not going to book your facilities?
Maybe I can help there, Percy. It's my understanding that there has been some requests by performers at the Arden that the audience and the staff be vaccinated. So, that's something we still are investigating further. We have been doing some work on the internal side prior to the orders with respect to our employees as well, and what direction we want to go there. So that's kind of running in, well, it was running before, and now it's running in parallel with this.
Okay, thank you. You guys are doing great work on the fly. My last question is about the municipal election. Kind of, are you at a point where you can comment on how this will affect polling? I believe we're starting on the 3rd or 4th, something like that.
I'll start. Maybe Mr. LaFleur can supplement. But a couple of weeks ago, we always had contingency plans for, I guess, a COVID type municipal election. And a couple of weeks ago, when the cases were increasing and the masking requirement came in, our contingency plan became our main plan. So we are looking at things like, we've already built things like masking and spacing and that into it. But again, I don't believe, and Mr. LaFleur can comment further, that we can't impede anybody's right to vote if they're not vaccinated. But I'll let Mr. LaFleur comment further on our plans at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Scoble. Yes, through the chair to Councillor Joly. The short answer is that what the province announced last night is not really going to have a major impact, or perhaps not any impact at all, on what we were otherwise planning to do. We will ensure that people who show up to vote at voting stations must be masked, unless, of course, they have an exemption that's allowed under the provincial order. That's Order 40, which is the one that preceded last night's announcement. We will ensure that happens. But we, as Mr. Scoble said, we're not going to deny anyone their right to vote. If they do have a mask exemption and or a letter from a doctor, that's another way of doing it, then they'll be diverted to a very separate spot. They'll be kept away from the rest of the voters. And we're also looking at, I can't say for sure we'll be able to, but we're looking hard at the possibility of setting up an advanced voting poll just for the unmasked. So we are looking at a number of ways to be sure that people who want to vote and will show up with masks on are kept as safe as possible in our voting stations. Obviously, there'll be barriers, there'll be distancing, there'll be sanitization of hands and of things that you use to vote, like pencils, for example. All of those measures will still be in place. So I don't think that what was announced yesterday, subject to looking at the order, obviously, which we haven't seen, but from what I can see so far, I don't think it will greatly impact at all of those many, many safety measures that we are already planning to implement for the municipal election.
Mr. LaFleur, along that lines, you're talking about unmasked. I think we need to talk about unvaccinated as well. So if we have an exemption program at Service Place, for example, and that's one of our polling stations, the unvaccinated can't enter. So are we having special accommodations outside in a tent? Or I think it goes, because an unvaccinated person can wear a mask, but are they allowed in? Those are the hard questions.
Yes. That's an extremely difficult question. If you try to say we're not going to let you into a polling place if you're unvaccinated, you're essentially telling the unvaccinated you've lost your right to vote. that's a serious step to take.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about special accommodations for them, whether it be outside or something.
I agree. And as we've said, but to make special accommodations means we have to ask them to show proof of the vaccination.
Okay.
And I'm not sure whether the order is going to deal with the provincial election or not. I certainly hope it does, but my expectation is that it probably won't. And then basically we have to make these interpretations on our own. So let's wait and see what the actual order says, and we'll see how that impacts what we're going to do.
Okay. Councillor Jolly, you got your questions answered?
That's all I have. Thank you so much.
All right. Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for those questions, Councillor Jolly. Those were wholesome questions. Just a further question around our partners, Curling Club, VASA, those things. So if we pass an exemption rule for civic facilities, does that automatically play out for them as well?
Perhaps David can help me a bit again here. I think it comes down to, I guess, ownership of the building. If it's a city-owned building, and I'm not sure, it would depend on our I guess, our lease agreements, but perhaps I'll ask Mr. LaFleur to help me here.
Oh my, that's a difficult one that involves more considerations than you might think. I'm going to take that under advisement and try to provide a response later. I would rather not do it, off the cuff.
Okay, fair enough. Appreciate that. It's a difficult time. Just in terms of, I recognize that there will be financial implications. Just practically speaking, if we do this, come Tuesday morning, I want to go exercise at Service Place, and I come with my sheet of paper, and somebody's going to check that out. I'm understanding that would be okay until the province starts to provide a card and perhaps even an electronic means to verify your vaccination. Did I hear that correctly? We can just bring our record of vaccination date and away we go?
Well, maybe I'll let Percy take that one, but that's my understanding, yes.
That's our understanding at this point in time, and as of September 20th on the website, and what they talked about was all you needed at this point in time was proof of a single vaccination 14 days prior to that date.
Okay, well, things are fluid these days, so we'll work through it to be sure. Thank you.
Can I go back to the question that Wes had, and specifically the Curling Club? We've already got an email from them. They had, before the announcement, had already decided their season starts in a couple of days, and they'd already decided they were asking for proof of fully vaccinated to play and work at the Curling Club. And I assume they had that authority. And so regardless of what St. Albert Council does today, can they still have that authority to require their players and their staff to be fully vaccinated, which is beyond what the province is asking for? So I want to give them that.
I think I would defer to Dave on that one, David.
Yeah, I anticipated you would. So I turned my camera and my mic on. So we have to distinguish between the private sector and public sector actors as well. The fact that we happen to be their landlord is really basically no legal relevance here at all. A private sector actor can put whatever restrictions they want, so long as they're not discriminating on any of the prohibited grounds under the Alberta Human Rights Act. And so far as I can see, requiring proof of vaccination would not trigger any kind of complaint under Alberta human rights legislation. So basically, if you want to ensure that your own members of a private club or your own employees of a private organization need to be vaccinated, you can do that. In fact, as we all know, it's being done in many places. Businesses large and small are doing it all over the place. The Curling Club would be no different.
Okay, good. I mean, I'm hearing businesses worried about that as well. They were already going to require double vax, and so that's good to know. All right, more questions? Councillor Mackay. Oh, I could barely see your hand up there. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. With this blurring feature,
Yeah.
it does kind of blend.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Percy, Kevin, and Mr. LaFleur. I guess the question I have follows a little bit on previous comments that were just made. So right now we're talking about establishing an exemption program for civic facilities. This basically then leaves our all our retail private shopping centers up to themselves to establish an exemption program if they want to continue as business as usual, and put maybe masking requirements or whatever falls out from the order. Is there any way the city can implement a citywide masking bylaw, or not masking, an exemption bylaw for our businesses, or is that beyond our ability, short of coming up with a state or local emergency or something like that?
Yeah. I think that's probably what we would have to do, but I'll let David answer.
So through the chair to Councilor Mackay, it may be possible to do that. I don't want to say definitively. Again, I'm harking back to the amendment that was made basically on Wednesday evening without any fanfare that just came to my attention yesterday, that basically says that, you know, municipalities can supplement what the province has done in whatever the way they want. Now, that's pretty broad language, and you know, it would seem to open the door to that, but I want to look into it a little bit further. And certainly if council has a desire to go in that direction, we'll need to research that very quickly. But that is it. It does appear at first blush that might be possible.
Okay, I just was curious because I wasn't sure whether we're just talking about the civic or if we're talking citywide, or if there's even that possibility. And then if there is, what do we have to have in place if we decide to go that direction? Anyways, thank you.
We would definitely have to have a bylaw. Absolutely. For sure.
All right. And that is logistical challenges. Right. Sorry.
Are you done with your questions?
Yeah, no, most of my questions were already asked. Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. So I'm seeing no more hands up. Oh, go ahead, Ray. Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, so this has come so fast. I'm a little bit confused. So we have to have all these, either one or the other, in place by Monday, beginning of day Monday. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Maybe I can help out with that, and David or Percy can supplement. Not necessarily. I mean, you know, if I guess the default would be on Monday if you don't implement an exemption program. What is it called? Restriction exemption program. Then the default is the capacity constraints and the operating parameters. But that doesn't stop, I guess, a municipality from putting the restriction exemptions in at a later date, like September 21st or 22nd or what have you. But I would say the default, my understanding is the default is the again, capacity and operating restrictions and things like that. But from what I read, it doesn't say you couldn't do it later than the 20th. It's just that would be the earliest date. But perhaps David, you want to help me with that?
I can't see it any better than what was just said. I agree, that's correct. September 20th. If you can't get your act together to have an exemption program in place, and let's face it, many municipalities are going to find it really hard to do it that quickly, then you can do it when you are ready. But if not, then on Monday, you're imposing those restrictions. You just are. So there you go.
So it almost seems to me like I don't know if legally there's so many legal questions here. It's going to be a nightmare going into the future.
Tell me about it.
I don't know. Just in this discussion, there's been 8 referrals to Dave already on legal questions. So I don't think you can even stop. Could you even stop somebody from voting if they had COVID? Legally, from coming in a polling station? I don't think you could. Like if a person even had COVID and they said, I'm coming in a polling station to vote, I don't think you can stop them.
Okay, so we don't through the chair, we don't have the same absolute protection of the right to vote for a municipal election as there is in the Charter of Rights for provincial and federal elections. That is true.
Yes, on Monday, a person, if they're COVID active, could walk in and demand to vote, and there's no way anybody could stop them.
Not necessarily. We can put reasonable restrictions on that. If you're talking about this upcoming money in the federal election.
Yes.
That's something I'm going to, with respect, I'm going to decline comment on that. That's outside my area of expertise, what federal elections do. All I know is what the Charter of Rights says is that everyone has an absolute right to vote in a federal election for a member of parliament.
So I don't know how
I don't think we could say no.
Yeah, so I don't know how we could replace.
We could limit how they do it. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how we could replace restrictions on Monday, making people have either proof of vaccination or whatever to vote. So I don't know how we could do that. So I think the only option for Monday at service is restriction of capacity. And if we have restriction of capacity, what is that going to mean at service and voting? Is that going to mean people are going to be standing outside, lining upside around the building, or people won't have time to get in to vote? What would that look like, I wonder?
Well, that's a good question. Through the chair, we are attempting to reach out to the returning officer for the St. Albert Edmonton riding to determine what their view of the matter is and how if at all, we can do that. Personally, I don't like the idea of even making people line up, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think any limitation you put on the right to vote, anything that makes it harder or more troublesome to vote, is something that needs to be avoided. So we may have to just say, when it comes to voting, that we're not going to touch the federal election. But I do want to talk to the returning officer, or one of us, someone from admin will have to talk to the federal returning officer. We have to be on the same page for sure.
Okay. And the province's passport system, Percy, what did you say when they're supposed to try to have that up and going?
The vaccine card is supposed to be up and running on Monday, is what they indicated.
On the same day, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as if we implemented a kind of a proof of vaccine system, then we would have staff having to review these cards, and that would be the only acceptable form would be the card, or would we have staff people pulling crumpled paper out of their pocket and showing it to staff and saying, this is my vaccine, and getting in a debate with staff about if it's valid or not? Like, how are we going to handle that with people? It just seems like a real nightmare with people who don't want to get vaxxed, who want to go in facilities. They're going to be argumentative, and I guess.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we're still pondering that ourselves, whether we're going to have like a name list with check, like doing it manually. We don't know yet. We're busy looking at our system capabilities, and of course there's protection of personal information. There's all kinds of things at play here. So we're busy trying to figure that out, and that's part of one of the asks. If council selects that option for financial, we may very well have to redeploy some people or have some people on overtime or whatever, just to manage the process, so to speak.
And then enforcement. Did you say, Percy, that enforcement was it the responsibility of the province at one point?
At this, what I said in there, they've indicated that they will come and audit the different facilities and businesses and how they are implementing the exception program.
So if you don't have to apply for it, how do they even know who's done it?
They don't.
They said they would monitor the exception program. That's what they're going to be monitoring.
That's what they've said.
And the city is to enforce everything else, I guess. Okay, I know.
This without the order in front of us, it's very difficult to say, and I think David, would concur with that.
Well, in some ways, that's the kind of the catch-22. It's very difficult for us to make a decision on what to do without the order, because there's all these questions and there's all these legal questions. And it's very difficult. Those are my questions.
Yeah, good points. Okay, I can't remember who had their hand up first, Councillor Jelly or Hanson, but I'll go Councillor Hanson and then to you, Natalie.
Thank you. I wonder if, Mr. Scoville, we have had and I'm sure you haven't, had a conversation with the Chamber of Commerce about supporting them with and I'm just going to call this a vaccine passport, because I really don't like the word, whatever, restriction exemption program. That's just very confusing. It looks like we're exempting restrictions. And so we're allowing people to do whatever they want. So it could be read in a couple of ways. So I'm just going to call it a vaccine passport program. Have we talked to the chamber, and is it that a civic bylaw is what they're looking for support in terms of their protection if they want to implement this at their own business?
I guess I believe Mike had kind of made an initial contact last evening. I think, again, that's something we need to work on. I mean, the first thing came to our mind is supporting the chamber with the upcoming farmers market this weekend, for example, right? And what are the impacts, I guess, of what was announced yesterday on the market this weekend, if any? So I believe Mike was reaching out last night. Certainly we'll be having more conversations with the chamber. I don't know if Mike is on this morning.
Yes, he is.
Okay, Mike, maybe you can provide some comment on discussions today.
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Scoville. We did connect briefly last night, and we plan to have some more discussion this morning, today.
And is there a general direction, or they're going to take it back to their board, and we'll take it from there?
We haven't discussed that at this point.
Okay. I think that's kind of important information to know going forward. I also just wanted to relay that I actually was in BC in Tawasin, and I took my mother to vote last Friday at advanced polls. And they had their polling at the Tawasin Town Center Mall. And how they worked it was that they had the table set up very close to the front doors, and they had 4 different polling stations lined up outdoors. So, and 6 feet apart, and then people monitoring that as people went into the building, and they went in a short way and they exited a different way. So it's onerous because we had a lot of elderly people standing outside for a long time. Fortunately, the weather was good. But I guess my point is, it is getting handled in certain ways, and there are ways to mitigate, I guess, transmission or whatever of the virus. So it's possible, but it is onerous. But I would just say, for me, at the end of the day, I would like to be supporting businesses. I would like to know that we have a vaccine passport in place at our civic facilities. I'm okay with going till the 21st to get this done so that our federal election can take place. I think I want a little bit more information about how we can collaborate with our partners in the city. I'm not, I don't feel the need to just put this exemption order in place today. I feel like we might need a little bit more time.
I'll just, before I go to you, Natalie, we just got an email, council did, from Peter Bailey at the library, because they were questioning the same question I had about if you do an exemption program, are masks still required? So Peter said from libraries at governmentalberta.ca, Health has clarified that if a library board chooses to implement the restriction exemption program, the library would have to maintain masking requirements, but not the physical distancing requirements or capacities, I assume. So it sounds like for libraries, they would still have to wear masks. So I'm assuming for everything, but that's just for your information. Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. I just have a question about the people with COVID. I was under the impression that the health order requires people with COVID to isolate. Does that not apply for elections?
So, Councillor Jolie, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at. People who have COVID, who test positive, have to isolate.
Well, just the isolation, the order having to do with isolations, just follow up on Councillor Watkins' question. I was under the impression that the order said that if you have COVID or COVID symptoms, you have to isolate. And does that not apply in the context of elections? Sorry, I just want to clarify your answer.
The short answer is I don't know. I really, that's something we need to look at. And then of course that leads to how are we going to know if a person has COVID, right? Or has COVID symptoms? Are you just going to ask them to declare when they show up at the polls? We could do that. What if they do have symptoms and declare that they don't? What are we going to do? And so there are a host of practical problems that arise from that question.
Okay, thank you. I don't know is a good answer at this point. For my last question is, in terms of the state of emergency that was called, does that have any impact on how we operate? Like whether they call a state of emergency or not? How does that impact us?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll try first, Percy, and you can jump in afterwards. The declaration of a provincial state of emergency in and of itself would not have direct impact on us. What we really need to see is specific orders saying you have to do this with this kind of activity or this kind of facility. You have to restrict occupancy in these ways. That's what has an impact on us. The actual declaration of a provincial state of emergency does not. It really has more to do with giving the province itself the ability to marshal resources and financial and human resources to do what they need to do, right? It has more of an impact on them than on us. If we declared our own local state of emergency, of course, that would impact us. But at the provincial level, not so much. Not so much. We really do need to see the specific orders.
Thank you, Mr. LaFleur. Nothing further.
Okay, so let me see if I can summarize what our approach. And Wes put a question, can we see the motions? Which I would love to see them on the screen. But so my understanding is starting this morning until Sunday night, Service Place, Fountain Park Pool, I'm assuming the library because it's in a city building, maybe VASA because it's a city building. They're non-essential, are under capacity restrictions, masking restrictions, and distancing. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so that's just the basis, and nothing we do today is going to change that. But we are trying to give Mr. Scoble and his staff the heads up. So if we make a decision to implement the program, they can start planning for that today instead of at last minute next week. So I'm hearing, and we'll wait to see the motion, that there might be some desire to not implement, I'm going to call it a passport system too, Jackie, because it's easier, till Tuesday, so we don't have to worry so much about the election. Is that what I'm hearing, Council? Seeing some nods. Yeah. And then
question.
Go ahead. Yep.
I just want clarification on that last point because I mean, I guess it's dependent. I mean, just clarification, Mr. LaFleur, I think you said that we don't have, even though the province is requiring by September 20th, we can implement an exemption program anytime after September 20th. Is that correct? Did I hear that properly?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so that would follow with what Mayor Herron just outlined.
That's correct. We don't have to do it, before the federal election is over.
Okay. But could we, if one of our facilities, and I take it Service Place right now is probably the only one of our facilities that is being used for the federal election, could we not just limit access to, I'm assuming, the west or south doors of Service Place and have everybody only come through there?
That may be possible. I'm not quite familiar enough with the layout and the flow of pedestrian traffic there, but it may very well be. Again, I'm going to go back to saying I want to be sure that whatever we do is we're on exactly the same page with the federal returning officer who we will be contacting.
Well, Mayor Herron, my only comment, and it's not a debate, it's just a comment right now, would be that why would we, if we've already got a provincial date of September 20th, why would we perhaps cause additional confusion by throwing in a September 21st date? So I'm just saying, why would we not provide direction to administration to implement it beginning September 20th? As outlined by Councillor Watkins, that there'll be all sorts of huge challenges around enforcement and other logistical challenges. But I think why would we throw another logistical problem by throwing a September 21st date? Why don't we just keep it September 20th? And if we can modify the flow into Service Place, great. If we can't, well, you know, we've done our best to at least follow the intent of the health order.
Okay. And I'm not getting into debate with you about that now,
Yeah,
Councillor.
no,
I'm trying to capture the trend of the conversation. That's all.
Okay, fair enough.
And yeah, so and I think the question about we could do this at any time, we could do it October 1st or whatever, do the passport program is unfair to Mr. Scoble and his staff. So we want to give them direction today. So, but the other thing I'm curious about is if we do anything today, I think council needs to be on standby for a second special council meeting. If when the orders come out, we need to tweak or add the masks back in or whatever. I think we just need to be ready and available for any governance decisions there. So, all right, I did see the motions go into the chat. I'm going to ask if somebody could actually put those into a Word document and share them on the screen. We shouldn't be doing governance issues in a public setting when the public can't see the chat. So can we cut and paste that into a Word document and share it on the screen?
We'll get that up right away, Mayor.
Okay.
Can I just add, I've been looking at the chat, only one of the two alternative motions is there. We need the other one as well. The one that's there is the one that says don't take advantage of the restriction exemption program. We also need the one that says do take advantage of that. So okay. You've got it there just when you're cutting and pasting.
Okay, while we're waiting for that to be shared on the screen, so the entire, because I know that there are people on YouTube watching this. I've had so many calls today about it and I've told them to watch. So is there any more questions about anything? Okay, seeing no hands going up. Is there any desire to move a motion that would bring in this exemption program? And we'll worry about the date in a second. So I've got a nod from Wes and a nod from Natalie. All right, I'll let one of you put the motion on the floor, and then we can discuss the date as I don't know what the motion says, but we can discuss that in 2 secs. Tamara? Awesome. Make it a little bigger.
There's a little zoom button in the file if you were in the first one there.
And of course, I don't have my glasses on. All right, hold on one sec. I need to get my glasses.
Can you see that better?
Yeah, if you just pull the slider down at the bottom right-hand corner where it says 100%, it'll just make it, you don't have to change the font.
Okay.
Way too much direction here.
Okay.
I didn't want to tell you you had your glasses on your head.
They were not. The CA will be directed to implement new COVID restrictions applicable to city facilities and programs contained in any order issued by the province of Alberta based on the public announcement of September 15, 2021, without applying restriction exemptions based on the vaccination status of persons who use. Okay, so that's not. Okay, that's not the one I think we're looking for. And that the CA will be, to implement new. And there's another one about finances.
If somebody could share that one with me, I don't have it yet.
Oh, okay.
Madam Mayor, while they're getting the second one up, I'd be more than happy, unless Councillor Jolly would like to do it, move the second motion there.
You've got
Okay.
Councillor Broadhead, go for it.
So the one that has the part A and part B, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Why don't you read it just so everyone at home can understand?
All right. I move that the City of St. Albert Chief Administrative Officer be directed, A, to implement new COVID restrictions applicable to city facilities and programs contained in any order issued by the province of Alberta based on the public announcement on September 15th, 2021. And also, B, to implement as soon as reasonably possible restriction exemptions provided for in the order based on the vaccination status of persons who use such facilities and program, with the intent of allowing fully vaccinated users to experience as little disruption as possible to their normal routines and activities. And I can continue if you wish, but
Yeah, let's wait for 2 seconds, Wes, because I actually have a question about the part B. Are we saying that you have to be fully vaccinated right away?
Actually, I'm going to defer to Dave, but I picked that one up myself. I think based on Percy's slides, it would have to be consistent with the provincial requirements of a single vaccine and by such and such a date. And
then October 25th. So if we just take the word fully out, it would be easier.
I think that would be, I was just about to suggest that, Mayor. I think that's the perfect solution. Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't it also fully one dose or proof that you don't have COVID? Like a rapid vaccination test? Wasn't it one or the other? Or is it just one?
Yes, you're correct, Councillor.
We could probably have one. We could probably have both in there too, because that's what the province is aligning. They're saying you either have a one-shot COVID or proof from a rapid test.
Yeah, I think I would have the restriction exemptions provided in the order. So that's in there. Yeah.
Let's put that in there.
David, does that, because we haven't seen the order, but
the general language that you just referred to provided for in the order, I drafted it that way because then we can wait and see what the order says and follow it.
And not get too specific in our own motion.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Is that okay, Councillor Watkins? Yeah. So yes, if you can't get vaccinated, you still have access, or if you have a rapid test, still have access. All right. Okay, any more questions about the motions?
You're talking about the first ones by Councillor Jolie and Margo? Yeah, okay.
We've only read the first A and B in, not the second, so we'll treat them one at a time. My only question is, it says as soon as possible. So we've had a small debate about whether we should do this on Monday or Tuesday. So I think we need to understand what we're doing here. And what maybe your intentions are, Mr. Scoble.
Can I just say that what's wrong with as soon as reasonably possible? That covers all of the discussion.
Some of us want it Monday. And I think we should, yeah.
So if I can comment, you know, a facility such as Fountain Park, the pool is not impacted by the election on Monday. So that, you know, the restriction exemptions, if council gave that direction today, could be implemented on Monday at all our facilities except perhaps service. In terms of service, I think Mr. LaFleur had explained it earlier that, again, he really needs to talk to the chief returning officer, you know, perhaps taking Councillor Hansen's comments regarding BC elections under advisement and that sort of thing. And as I'd said at the beginning, the question is, can we operate in parallel, I guess? Can we have all of service operating under restriction exemptions, except perhaps the voting area? And so that there's some logistics and details there. So maybe David can help me out here. Like, I guess as soon as reasonably possible, as it's worded there, perhaps 3/4 of service place can be under restriction exemptions on Monday, and 1/4 of it can't for the election. Or as we do more work, maybe we have to say service doesn't take effect till as a whole doesn't take effect till the 21st. I think it's reasonably open enough here to review the orders and make operational decisions once we've been in consultation with the federal returning officer. David, perhaps you can discuss whether you're in concurrence with what I've just said, or I'm totally wrong.
Through the chair, you are totally wrong, and I am in concurrence. No, through the chair. Yeah, all seriousness, I think that what Mr. Scoble just said would be accurate. The language was deliberately made fairly general so that we could take into account both the exact wording of the orders and what we may learn from the federal officials who are charged with actually running the election, the federal election. We need to take into account both of those things. We do not have perfect information right now as of 10:11 this morning. So that's why the wording is as it is. And I think it would cover, I think administration is well aware that, you know, the intent of council, if this motion is passed, is to get people back to a normal life, a normal use of our facilities as soon as we possibly can. And that will be done if this motion is passed.
I guess my question, I'll get to you right away, Councillor Hansen, was not so much about the election and that piece of service place. I just want to make sure that on Monday, Fountain Park is doing this, and the library, like they need direction, and as soon as possible doesn't give direction. So could we say no later than September 21st? Would that be good?
Essentially, this is going to be as wide as maybe just a little bit less.
I'm hearing Mr. LaFleur.
Yeah, the only concern I would have about picking a specific date on the basis of our current state of information is that what if something unexpected happens and we can't do it? Then you're putting us in the position of administration disobeying council's order. That's not a comfortable position to be in. So I do prefer the language as it is. I think everyone from Mr. Scoble on down understands that we're going to do everything in our power to get this done in every facility, even including service, if that's possible, on Monday. And if it's just a wait a day, so be it. But you know, we do need a little bit of flexibility because you don't know what issues might arise in implementation, and we haven't seen the order yet from the province. So.
Okay, Councillor Hansen.
Yeah, I guess just following up on Mr. LaFleur's last comment, I do think it is important that we see the order. How long has it typically taken? A couple of days before announcements and then orders?
Well, it ranges. We've seen it within a day, and I think in one case it was like 4 or 5 days off the top of my head. So it varies. Yeah.
Okay, well, I do think seeing the order is gonna, you know, the devil is in the detail, I'm sure, with the order that comes out. I'm satisfied with this, but I understand where the mayor is going. I mean, and, you know, hopefully our civic facilities know that this is coming and they can start to at least make allowances to this outcome. But I do hope it's Monday as well.
Okay. Here's a question that's kind of unrelated to the motion, but slightly. Kevin, how late did you and your staff work last night, and how early did you start this morning, and how much time are we going to put in this weekend? Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, you know, I think we had things reasonably under control last night. I mean, different staff worked different hours, but the main, you know, our Percy and our communications folks are the ones really under pressure last night there. You know,
it's my own personal frustration. If the province had just said passport program across Alberta, any non-essential by Monday, then we wouldn't even be having this meeting today.
Yeah.
Right.
My concern is more next week, regardless of which direction council gives, is just, you know, we are anticipating maybe having to move some people around and certainly incur some overtime and some third-party expenses. Again, regardless of the decision, I actually see the most pressure on the staff overall, not individuals, being next week, just getting this going, and in the first couple of weeks of, I guess, sorting out all the kinks and you know, getting our own residents gaining clarity. You know,
I know
we're having trouble discussing it today, and I really feel for the residents who are trying to sort this all out too, and businesses.
And this will affect employment. If an employee at one of our civic facilities is not vaccinated, they can't go to work. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, we haven't put out final policy, but, you know, consistent, you know, with what the province said, not being vaccinated doesn't preclude you necessarily if you are getting the negative test, right, or the PCR
That's
test.
true. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. I see no more hands up. So Councillor Broadhead, I'm going to accept your motion. And
share the screen again, Tamara.
And you can have your opening arguments.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, I've read it in and you've accepted it, correct, Mayor?
Yes.
All right, so my rationale for bringing this motion forward and supporting it is simply that we're in the midst of the fourth wave, and it is a crisis, to be sure. Alberta is in deep trouble in terms of the number of COVID cases, the impact on our health system. And as the Premier said, this is a crisis of the unvaccinated. What this does is allows those who have participated in the vaccination program or are willing to do the rapid PCR testing to participate in life as close as possible to normal. And it opens our facilities to a wider range of use to our citizens in our community. Nobody wants to go here. Nobody wants to have COVID at all. But the reality is that COVID does exist. There are people in the hospital. There are people dying, and there is a way to prevent it. And by and large, that way of prevention is through a vaccination program. And vaccines are effective. And in St. Albert, we are leading the way in the overall vaccination rate within our community. And by imposing this small restriction on our citizens, we open up civic facilities to their use as widely as possible. Without this, we're into all sorts of other problems where we have to start dealing with, the restriction on the number of people that can go in there, all sorts of indoor restrictions on even being able to gather. But if we implement this program, they may have to be masked, but at least they can come in and do their, have access to facilities that the city provides. So that's my argument.
Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. I mean, everyone knows this, but I think a couple of comments are valuable in this case. healthcare experts have been calling for a vaccine passport for a while now. I'll kind of echo Mayor Herron's frustration. I'm infuriated that the province is downloading these decisions to individual businesses and municipalities. Again, what we really need to communicate to our community and to the provincial government is that we are one Alberta. We all want our businesses to thrive. We all want to safeguard our healthcare system, and we all care deeply about our neighbors. A vaccine passport system helps us achieve our shared goals of supporting businesses and keeping everyone in Alberta safe. And I just want to read a friend of mine who works in hospitals messaged me yesterday and said that it's terrible. I can't believe how bad it's getting. The youngest people are dying and there's nothing in the news about it. This is really time for us to do what we can as a community to step up and to make sure that we have healthcare capacity sooner than later. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councillor Mackay.
Thanks. I won't echo too many of the comments because like Councillor Joey and Councillor Broadhead, I'm incredibly frustrated that we find ourselves in this position this morning. You know, and we've talked about our civic facilities and we've talked about the responsibilities that we have now that are being downloaded on the municipalities to implement exemptions and our private retail and other facilities, whether it be not-for-profits or educational facilities, they're all being caught in a situation where they now have to implement an exemption program. But what also, which we have no impact on, is how fully vaccinated people are being impacted in their own private homes and in their own private settings, where we feel somewhat penalized in the sense that we are now being limited in who we can have into our own homes being fully vaccinated. Well, you know, anyway, you can sense my sense of frustration. I don't need to stand here on this today and continue. I will obviously support the restrictions because I want to keep our facilities open and at least we provide choice. So thank you.
Anyone else? I think it's probably obvious how I'm going to vote, considering I signed a letter to Minister of Health asking for this. I got to say though, this decision is not that hard for St. Albert City Council, probably because of the high vaccination rates we have in our city. I think that indicates that St. Albert residents get it, that they, as Natalie said, care about their neighbors and care about their societal responsibility, overwhelmingly high percentage in St. Albert. So I do feel sorry for municipalities in areas that don't have the same vaccination rates and businesses in those areas that are now being forced into these hard decisions, and they might be pitting one clothing store against another. And I think it increases the division that we're seeing more than alleviates it. So I'm not sure how we're going to find out which businesses in St. Albert are doing the passport program and which ones aren't, but that's going to have to be a list we're going to somehow have to have access to, because I know I probably will patronize a retail store that has the passport rather than one that doesn't. So it'll interesting times ahead, but Councillor Broadhead, I completely support your motion.
Close?
Yeah, you can close, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you, everybody on council. As we said on Monday, we are the COVID council, whether we like it or not. And decisions are coming to us that we would rather have at a different order of government making those decisions. However, they have not been. And so we have had to step forward and protect and support our community to the best of our ability. And I think that's what's being done here today. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'll close.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? So that's unanimous with Councillor Hughes absent. So there's another motion, I think, on finances. We'll get that back on the screen.
Question, Madam Mayor, once you get it up there.
Go ahead, Councillor Mackay.
Before we read it in, could we use our usual phrasing when we talk about finances? Can we say up to an additional 300,000?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Do you want to make the motion?
Yeah, sure. If we
Okay,
can
yeah.
just put that in. I unless we have more specifics, Mr. Scoble, that would, but I'm assuming not.
This is our best guess of what the maximum amount could be, regardless of what direction council goes. Like I said, as I think Percy said, we're incurring costs one way or the other. Our burn rate on the money approved by council earlier this year had us kind of expending it by year end, but then things changed in the summer and we haven't updated, and now things have changed again. So this is merely meant as a bridge through this period of election and standing up with the new council. Certainly if we have no need for the money, we are not spending it. It's just merely continuity of operations through the next 6 weeks till the new council is up and running.
Good. So, but the additional words up to wouldn't really.
No, but there's no issue with administration with that amendment.
All right, I'm ready to read it in unless there's further questions.
So my understanding is this is going to partially go to signage, probably some staffing costs. Mr. Scoble, is that what you're seeing this for?
Yes, perhaps some third-party costs if we have to, bring in additional third-party security to help us with this or anything like that.
And I was about to, well, I was going to say it in my debate, but I'll say it now. I do hope you bring in third-party security. It's not fair to the girl at the front counter at Fountain Park Pool to have this burden of proof. So I would hope that we would try to take that off their shoulders. And that's to me why I'm happily going to give the 300,000, but I'm in debate. Councillor Brad, for Councillor Mackay, why don't you read it?
I thought it was me talking there for a second. That up to an additional $300,000 be allocated from the stabilization fund to support additional expenditures that may be required to support city operations to comply with both new provincial orders released on September 15th with September 15th, 2021, as well as council direction.
Thank you. I'll accept that motion. Go ahead.
Great comments by Mr. Scoble and yourself when you weren't in debate. I think that, obviously there's going to be so many costs. We talked about it in the previous discussion where we don't know until we actually see the orders. We don't know what those implications will be, but we no doubt have identified enforcement issues, staffing issues, modified hours issues. I mean, the list goes on, it's endless. So I think $300,000 is, like I said, a reasonable number, and it will hopefully not amount to that much, but we won't know until we actually get a final accounting, probably as part of the year end in the next term.
All right. Anyone else? I'll just add that we're lucky and fortunate that we can give Mr. Scoble this kind of resource, but just think about a local restaurant here in St. Albert who obviously with weather like today is going to want to have a passport program so you can have indoor dining. And now you're asking them to come up with new signage that costs them money. And, and then, so my daughter works at Socrates. Is she going to be the one enforcing passport, proof of? It's a mess. And I feel bad for those small to medium-sized businesses that have to deal with this, but I also want to make sure that our staff are safe and covered off. So I'll easily support this. Anything to close?
Only that I would ask, you've obviously identified some challenges, and we talked about it in the previous discussion around how incredibly frustrating it is for us and how incredibly frustrating I think we are hearing from our residents and from our health professionals. And now we're going to be perhaps hearing that some frustration may be taken out not only on our staff, but potentially other staff working in retail. But I would only urge all our residents to please have a little bit of patience, have a little bit of understanding, and together, hopefully we can get through this next stage.
Awesome. All right, call for the vote. That is unanimous with Councillor Hughes absent. Before we adjourn, I think we're going to need some follow-up from you, Mr. Scobel, when the order comes out. I still have questions about wanting masks to still be worn even with the passport program in place. And I would like to know what authorities are going to be giving to our CPOs and so for enforcement. Those kind of some questions that we still don't have answered, but you know, if there's a fight at the front door of Socrates and we call a bylaw, I want to know what authorities we have. So if we could get that followed up on when the order comes out, that would be awesome.
Yes, we'll maintain regular updates to council and the public as well. Our pretty much our entire communications department is stood up at the moment to make sure that information is flowing.
All right, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, and I guess just to follow up on that, in terms of bylaw officers and uncomfortable situations, I'm guessing council will want to know how often those are happening and in what context, etc. So that will help us understand how this rolls out.
Yeah, actually, you know, just the comments I'm hearing, I think probably what we'll end up doing in council is we'll give a regular summary like we did earlier in the winter with municipal enforcement visits and issues and that. So we'll ask Aaron to provide that on a regular basis so that council knows what's happening in terms of issues out there.
Okay. All right, one more thing before we adjourn, because I'm seeing 29 participants on this call. It's council, but mostly staff. I see obviously Percy's worked long hours, Ledge to get this meeting organized. I know Aaron is going to be struggling with what the enforcement looks like. We've got Paul doing communications, Diane with recreation. Like, there's so many people that are working so hard right now for the city of St. Albert to make this easy flowing. And it's frustrating because it's Thursday and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of weekend hours. Just want, and I'm sure I speak for all members of council who are on the call right now, we appreciate everything you do for public service for the city. So with that, if there's no further business, I will adjourn.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. See you, everybody.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.